Hi, I'm Norm Stockton. Welcome to my home studio here in Orange County, California. I am so humbled and honored to be talking to you once again about the MTD Norm Stockton Artist Edition bass. This is the second YouTube clip that's come out. The first one came out when the bass was first released, and I'm so blown away that I've encountered owners of this instrument in Indonesia, in Europe, and all over the US, and people have been loving it. And it's really nothing special about me. It's really a meeting of the minds with the brilliant folks at MTD and Bartolini Electronics, and I think together we achieved a really versatile instrument. To kind of go to New York to the MTD headquarters and capture the process of building this bass from the initial stages all the way to setup, and then talk to Michael and Daniel Tobias about some of the behind the scenes, and then end with kind of my favorite settings. So anyway, let's first take it to New York.
The first thing we do is pick wood. We pick the top.
Very nice.
You never usually see quilted from Eastern maple.
Oh, okay.
Eastern maple is harder. Maple from the Pacific Northwest is bigger and softer.
Okay.
So the theory on the quilt that I was told is that the quilting figure comes from the trees getting so big and the wood getting so soft, they just kind of crush each other.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Yeah, it's like sort of the opposite of stretch marks. It's compression marks.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Soft maple tends to have bigger figure, like quilt. Eastern hard rock has much finer flame.
Okay.
And the burls are either the big warts you see on the side or the root ball of the tree. And the root ball is obviously the part that's underground.
Yeah. So is the are the tonal characteristics between flame, curly, and does it make a difference?
It makes a difference if it's hard maple or soft maple.
Okay.
Hard maple sounds different than soft maple.
Yeah.
Burl sounds a little different than both because usually it's fairly soft. Eastern hard rock, I would say, is brighter and a little crisper.
Okay.
Western big leaf or the quilt and the soft maples are warmer and sweeter.
These are the templates for the signature model?
It's right here. After a while, you kind of learn. You can look at stuff and see what it's going to be. You also move it around in the light and see how it refracts the light.
Oh, okay.
Just turn the light off to cut down on the glare.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see how iridescent it gets?
Yeah. What is that you're spraying?
Denatured alcohol. It's not like introducing water onto dry wood.
Yeah, yeah.
It evaporates faster. So.
Pickup and the bridge are going to hide most of that big round spot, but it really does look like a guy with a big mustache and a
Two eyes, yeah.
Look for alder that's clean, straight, with no flaws. Glue the pieces together in a sandwich so that your top is book matched in the middle with the alder on the outside.
All important wax paper. Otherwise, you get a base sandwich.
Oh, yeah. You got it down, man.
Practice.
Wax on, wax off. You don't even know what wax on, wax off is,
I
do
know
you?
what it is. My name is Daniel. You know how many times I got called Danielson?
Oh, yeah, man.
Once that's glued and cleaned up, it's joined down the center and trued up so that you can glue it together side by side, and that makes the body blank. From there, the body blank is, you lay the pattern on it, get all your registration holes and marks, and then the body gets cut out. Once the body is cut out, we start making neck. We usually do them in groups, so we'll do like 10 or 20 bodies at a time and then do necks. The neck blanks we buy as clear white piano action grade maple. And
It's hard rock northern maple.
yeah, it's eastern hard rock maple. We cut the peg head angle on a table saw, glue the pieces together,
To make a scarf joint.
and then add a front peg head veneer. Once that's done, that blank is put on the CNC machine. The truss rod and titanium slots are cut. And then we glue a fingerboard on.
And we're using seasoned bird's eye maple for a fingerboard. Standard on all of the Norm models. North American hard rock maple. This is the truss rod slot. It's a double action truss rod. And then these are the slots for the titanium inserts.
So that would be the deal if they were the right length.
Okay.
That would trim them. Not stuck well.
Yeah.
It makes the coolest part from a planet.
Yeah. So felt on the truss rod so it doesn't rattle around.
Yeah.
It's pinning the board so it doesn't move.
This is a special epoxy that comes from a place out in California that makes stuff for hardwoods and exotic woods, and the chemicals in the epoxy drive the oils in the exotic woods away from the glue joint, making a better glue joint. There's none of that in maple, but it's really good glue. It's an excellent moisture barrier between the fingerboard and the rest of the neck.
Full on. Okay, so the inlay is getting glued in too.
Oh
Yeah.
I guess that shouldn't surprise me.
Well, wood moves.
Yeah.
It expands and contracts. If the wood expands from heat or humidity or whatever, then they can rattle.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that keeps them stable unless you glue the whole thing in. So these are small enough that they don't overpower the truss rod and make it impossible to adjust, but they do help stiffen the neck and help mitigate the dead spots.
Yeah, they made a big difference in the prototypes.
Yeah. Once that's done, it's put back on the machine and it cuts the fret slots most accurately. This curved side fits this.
Oh, okay.
The other side, it's easier for me to push against the belt to get stuff off. stuff is black dyed anagray, which is a nice, moderately flexible material. Actually, it's really flexible because we cut it so the grain bends.
Oh, okay.
Rather than straight grain. Because otherwise, when you put it on here, all it does is shatter.
Oh.
So this way it conforms to the bend. With your help now.
Which bases get the rear peghead veneer now?
All of yours, all the Saratogas, and all the 6s.
Okay.
With everything in clamps. There you have your roughly veneered peghead. This is the hard part.
That you make look easy.
A little easier if the shop weren't so cramped, but the nature of things. Drawing the exact body line and an area for padding. It's an immense amount of torque going that way. So while it's just sanding the shape, the final shape, it's actually a lot of work.
Yeah.
94, and what I usually aim for is 0.8 to 0.9. We got about 30,000 to go. The other thing you have to be careful of is not to undercut this too far.
Oh, yeah.
And make it a knife point. Then you don't want to overheat the neck too much. Feel it? How warm it is?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you overheat it a lot when you're doing this, it tries to warm.
So the asymmetric neck profile is totally, it's you finessing this thing now, right? Because
Yeah.
that's not put in even on the rough cut, is it?
It's sort of there, but
Slightly? Okay.
we've taken off at least
Yeah.
a third of it.
Right.
So, and then the rest of it is feel, how your hands feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
your hands on it. Yeah.
Huh?
You have to put your hand on it and see how it feels.
Oh, that feels good.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, that feels great, actually. Yeah. It feels like an MTD neck,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful thing.
Basically it. Ready. That's ready for final fitting and hand sanding.
Awesome.
Make sure everyone's in a straight line.
So do they still make tools like this?
This thing's 10 years older than I am. Buffalo Forge has
Yeah.
been out of business, I think, for quite a while.
Is that right?
Maybe not, but this was probably made in the 30s.
Yeah.
I've never changed the bearings on it.
It still just cranks, huh?
I've had it for... I got it in 94. 94.
Yeah.
And this in 94 was like driving a Mercedes.
Yeah.
25 years later, you can begin to feel the teeth,
Right.
you know? And it's literally, I'm going to be 70, it's 10 years older than I am. No, they don't make machinery like this anymore. This is pre-World War II,
Is that right?
or just about World War II. There's a foot pedal that makes you
Yeah.
need to have both hands free. This is a piloted cutter. So the pilot takes the hole we drilled, and this should trim a nice clean edge.
Oh, okay.
There, you have a Norm Stockton neck
Nice.
ready to fret. A bunch of years ago, my right shoulder came apart, and it's held together with screws and wire. And I do not have the arm strength that I used to have. So we ended up starting on a CNC machine to do the rough work so that I can still do the handwork necessary.
So it kind of gets you in the ballpark, and then you do all
Yeah,
the...
it's not, we don't make finished parts
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the machine. So there's plenty of handwork to go after them. But in the old days, that neck you saw me carve, I could do 8 of those a day from rectangles.
Wow.
Cut them out on the pin router, carve 8, and have that all done. And I don't have the strength to do that anymore. Because that's a 9 horsepower motor spinning at 10,000 RPMs with the bit trying to lift it off the table. So aside from cutting, you have to hold it down. And it just became overwhelming. So once the neck carving is done, then the neck goes to the fret bench where it gets leveled and fretted. After that's done, the side dots are put in, and then it gets sanded out. It takes about 5 or 6 hours to get it ready for finish. The finish process takes anywhere from a week to a week and a half. And then making the slap ramp and the
What is the finish process?
finish process consists of, in the case of the Norm bases, no pore filling necessary because they're not open pored woods. But so that The body is colored by hand. We rub the colors in like you in the old days would have done on a violin. Once the color is right, we use a clear penetrating epoxy as a sealer. And the epoxy is pretty much the viscosity of water, so it soaks in real well.
And then we use a catalyzed acrylic urethane to do a clear coat, and then finally a final coat, which puts the satin matte finish on it. After that, we have to assemble the entire thing to make the ramp for it.
Yeah.
So you can have the height correct and everything.
Yeah. The epoxy thing takes about 2 days tops. It's 3 coats that we usually put on. And if we put the last coat on in the morning, at night we can spray 5 or 6 coats of clear over the color in the epoxy. And you can sand it out the next day or the day after, depending on your schedule. And then if things work out, you put the top coat on. If not, you have to do another set of clear coat. But that usually takes a week to a week and a half to cure and be done.
Yeah.
And then I clean up the neck by sanding the paint off the frets, finish the satin treatment on the fingerboard, and then make a nut for it and make sure that fits and cleans up. And then the neck is bolted on, and then the base is assembled with your electronics hardware. Once it's strung, it sits for a day, gets final adjustments and intonation, and shipped out.
Many of you know that there was a sort of a design objective with this bass, and it was essentially that I could just bring one bass on the road, whether I was trying to get the 535 tone or more of a J kind of a thing. And we spent quite a bit of time going back and forth with the electronics, and and correcting one thing, initially we thought it was 400 and 800, but the center frequencies ended up being 250 and 450, which are kind of proprietary for this. What else is proprietary about this
the active split, the active coil cut. So you don't really lose volume unless you want to adjust it to lose volume when you go from dual to single coil. And then the coils that you select, I believe you select both neck side coils. And it gives you a warmer bridge attack when it's in single coil, and still a fatter neck sound. But we don't set up any of the other stuff that way. That's proprietary to your setup. So the pickups are still running through a buffer, but they are not as truly low impedance as the original 535. So that they do need the buffer to work and keep the volume. So
when we were originally talking about this signature bass, and I was saying, do you have something that could kind of do what the 535 does and what a J would do? What was your thinking in terms of how did you arrive? I know this is the final one was kind of the third prototype, and we went back and forth with some of the titanium inlays and stuff, but what was like the selection of the woods and the overall design? What was the thought behind that?
The most tape-friendly formula to my ear at that time was alder maple with a maple neck and either a maple or a rosewood board. So that's a traditional winning combination. It's hard to make something out of that and not sound good. So you were looking for more of a J bass, something more traditional sounding, and that wood combo seemed to fill the bill. When Bartolini made the pickups, though, I talked to him about making the bass sound more like an MTD than a Fender, and so the pickup winding is special as well, and that's part of it. But that formula of alder maple neck, and a maple board we use on the Andrew Goucher series and the Justin Raines basses, and they are more traditional in their voice and how they sit in the track. They don't have the same coil combinations and things you do. So yours is voiced differently, but the wood combination is easily the most popular traditional combination there is.
Yeah. So when I was describing what I was going for, you immediately opted out of the wenge thing.
Yeah. Well,
which is amazing on my 535, by the way.
It is very good, but it's not jazz bass like. And to me, if you want a traditional Fender sort of sound, you have to stay with a Fender formula. People make 5 and 6 string jazz basses, they make extended scale jazz basses, they make short scale jazz basses. They don't sound like a Fender to me. They're emotionally satisfying because you think you're playing that, but what works is the scale length, the pickup position, and the materials they made them from. And if you deviate from that too far, you deviate from the sound you're looking for.
Although we did go with a 35-inch scale.
We did.
Because the first prototype was a 34.
Yeah.
And it was good,
It was okay.
But it wasn't this, though.
The low B didn't have the spark. And you were used to a 35, so you liked the string tension better anyway.
Yeah.
But adding titanium to it warmed it up and made it rounder and a little smoother sounding, which makes it more like a 34-inch scale that way.
And to your point, I think I've said in one of my other videos, but one of my earliest conversations with you, you were talking about a bass guitar is first and foremost an acoustic instrument, and that whole thing of hearing and feeling how it is unplugged.
Yeah.
And that bass has that thing unplugged.
Yeah.
As soon as you start playing, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And the formula is pretty consistent. Very few of the instruments actually deviate from that acoustically. So.
Yeah. And then the headstock veneer and the little...
Ah, yes. So years ago, somebody developed a thing called a fat finger, which you could clamp on the end of your peg head and help eliminate standard Fenderish dead spots. It works, it's just horrendously ugly. And so the object was to try to find a way to get around that without having this appendage on the end of your peg head. We tried a bunch of different things. I inlaid titanium, I inlaid brass, I did bars and strips, and glued stuff in, and it didn't really work. And then I realized that what actually made it work, I buried the little gizmo, was the fact that the clamp had rubber on the end of it so it didn't scratch your peg head, and the back was felt, which means that you added weight to it, but it wasn't in direct contact. There was a dampener. So I tried one with felt around the brass, which weighs the same as the fat finger, and didn't glue it in. It's just held in, pressed in, and the dead spot was gone.
Yeah, we actually went back and forth a couple times with that, right? With that third prototype, and that was the thing that made it.
Yeah, finally made it work.
Fixed it, yeah.
So.
But you were saying that the idea of, at the time, Michael was telling me that, we don't want to mess with this too much because you could lose the things that are making it work, right?
Yeah, and it's
like this juggling kind of a thing.
It is. You can go too far with one thing, and so okay, this dead spot's gone, but now you got 3 more over here.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. Excuse me, to sort out.
Well, this is easily the most versatile MTD I've ever played, and it remains. I'm on a road trip right now, and I only brought one bass, and I did the rock thing, and I did the fusion thing. So I'm gonna fly in some stuff in this video where I'm kind of going through my tone settings and everything. But thank you both for building amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Tobias Design. This is probably my most used setting. It's both single coil, it's bass all the way up, mid's all the way up, mid is pushed down to the 250, and depending on how fresh the strings are, I've got the treble rolled off just a bit. There's quite a bit of enhancement in the last little bit of play with this, so I kind of get back past the super bright. Blend is in the middle, volume's all the way up. For the bridge Jocko thing, I like to keep it single coil, bass all the way up, but I pull the mids, they're still all the way up, but I pull it to the 450 setting, roll off the treble to the center detente, and go all the way back to the bridge pickup, and volumes all the way up. Full humbucker. You can also go full neck pickup, keep it all single coil, bass all the way up, mids pulled to 450, and level off your treble. So even using my favorite settings, but just changing the configuration of single coil to humbucker, you definitely get some different flavors. Let me put the neck pickup in humbucker mode. Reversing those. Both in humbucker. Both in single coil. Huge thanks to Michael and Daniel Tobias. This is the MTD Norm Stockton Artist Edition bass. Check it out at your local dealer. God bless you. I hope to see you on the road.